Ilara stood in the dim lamplight of her father's parlor, her hands clasped tightly in front of her skirt as though holding herself together by sheer will, while voices around her buzzed like flies over something dying. She was not a participant in the conversation, only the thing being discussed, bargained, traded. The room smelled of smoke, sweat, and stale liquor, the air thick with the sour scent of a deal being sealed. Her father, broad-shouldered and red-faced from drink, leaned back in his chair, laughter booming without joy. "She's barren, the doctor said so. Can't give no man a child," he declared, like announcing the condition of a mule. "But she can sew, tend a house, cook decent, and she knows how to keep her head down." His eyes flicked toward Ilara with the dullness of something that had once known affection but had long since dried out. Beside him sat a stranger who didn't belong to this hot, stifling room. Calder Holt, a widowed rancher from the far ridge, quiet and steady, his coat bearing the dust of long roads and harder days. He didn't drink, didn't ramble, didn't laugh at the mockery being made of her. Instead, he watched her, not in judgment, not in hunger, but as if he were reading something carved beneath her skin. His wife had died 3 winters ago, she had heard in whispers. Some said it carved the softness out of him. But the way he looked at her now told a different story, one of endurance, not emptiness. Her father slapped his palm to the table. "Price is fair. Ain't no sense arguing over a woman who can't give heirs." Ilara felt her throat close, but she stayed silent, protesting had never protected her before. Still, Calder didn't look at her father. He looked at her. "I've heard plenty of what she can't do," he said, voice low and steady. "I'd like to hear what she can." The room stilled. No one had asked her worth from her own mouth before. Ilara's breath shivered as she spoke. "I can tend a home," she said quietly. "I can mend clothes and harnesses. I know how to care for animals, milk cows, mend fences, plant and harvest. I work until the work is done. I don't break easily." The words felt too small, but they were true. Then, steadying herself as though stepping into cold river water, she added, "But I cannot give children." The silence that followed was thick, heavy, final. Her father looked satisfied, as if the admission sealed the sale. Calder nodded slowly, as if acknowledging not a flaw, but a truth. He rose from his chair and adjusted his coat, his voice calm. "I didn't come here for children," he said simply. Her father scoffed. "Then what in God's name are you paying for?" Calder picked up his hat, his gaze still steady on Ilara. "A home needs more than a cradle. A life needs more than bloodline. I didn't come looking for a womb. I came looking for a partner." The words struck the room like thunder, sharp, impossible, undeniable. Her father muttered, but gold clinked, hands were shaken, the decision made. Without her input, yet somehow, for the first time, she didn't feel entirely powerless. Calder stepped beside her, offering his coat as they left, not grabbing or directing her, simply standing with her. Outside, the autumn wind bit cold against her cheeks, but it felt cleansing rather than cruel. They rode away from the house that had never loved her, the only home she had ever known, and yet not home at all. She spoke softly over the sound of hooves. "You don't pity me?" Calder shook his head. "No. But I reckon you've been spoken over long enough." He glanced at her, eyes carrying grief and gentleness both. "From now on, you speak for yourself." And for the first time in her life, Ilara felt the possibility of breathing without pain. Ahead of her stretched uncertainty, but behind her, for the first time, was something she did not have to return to. A chapter had closed in silence. A new one was beginning in quiet hope. The Holt Ranch lay stretched beneath a wide sky, endless fields of amber grass rippling like waves beneath the wind, and Ilara had never seen so much open space in her life. It felt as though the world had finally given her room to breathe. Yet when she stepped inside the house, solid timber walls, stone hearth, and a kitchen that smelled faintly of cedar and something warm that once had been laughter, she felt a presence lingering, soft and unmistakable. Calder showed her where everything was without hurry, pointing to cupboards, the water pump, the stove, speaking gently, as though he understood the strangeness of walking into a life once shared with someone else. He did not wear grief like chains, yet it was there, quiet as dust on sunlight. Ilara worked that first day not because anyone asked her to, but because her hands needed purpose. She swept floors, opened windows, washed linens dried stiff from storage. Calder fed the horses and repaired the barn door hinge, both of them moving near one another in silence that did not pinch or press. When evening settled, he brought wood to the hearth and lit it, the flame crackling bright, casting warm light across the room. Over supper, simple stew and bread, Ilara felt strangely safe for the first time she could remember. She watched him as he ate, slow, thoughtful, as if aware of each bite. After a long moment, Calder set his spoon down and met her gaze.
"No one here will expect anything of you but honesty," he said. "This home ain't built on debts."
She didn't know she was trembling until she felt her hand shake around her spoon. "I don't know how to live in a place like that," she whispered. "Then we'll learn it together," he replied, with a steadiness that seemed to anchor the entire house. Days passed into a rhythm, morning sunlight spilling across the kitchen table, saddles to oil, fences to check, chickens to feed, bread to knead. Ilara felt her muscles ache, but it was a good ache, the kind that came from being useful, not owned.
Calder did not hover, but he noticed. When she went
quiet, he left space. When she needed direction, he offered it softly. When she cried once silently, on the porch at dusk, he did not ask why. He simply set a clean handkerchief beside her on the step and sat 2 feet away, facing the sunset instead of her. That was the first time she realized how deeply a person could be seen without being touched. Yet the ranch carried shadows too. One morning, Ilara entered the spare room to store folded quilts and saw a carved wooden hairbrush resting on the dresser. Its bristles were well worn, handle small, perfect for a woman with delicate hands. His wife's. Ilara froze, her breath snagging, fear and shame rising like heat. She had not come here to replace anyone. She had not wanted to take what someone else had left behind. She set the quilts down quietly and stepped away, heart tight. At supper, she couldn't meet Calder's gaze. He noticed. "You saw her room." His voice was not surprised.
Ilara nodded.
"I don't want to disrespect her," she said softly, struggling.
"Nor pretend she was never here."
Calder leaned back, his expression heavy but gentle.
"Good. Because I don't need forgetting. I need room."
"I loved her."
"That doesn't make you lesser. And it doesn't mean there isn't space for you too."
His words were steady, but they trembled around the edges like something long held finally spoken. Ilara swallowed, her voice barely a breath.
"Then what do you need from me?"
Calder stood, moved around the table, and stopped just close enough for her to feel the warmth of him, but not close enough to trap.
"I need someone who stays.
Someone who chooses this life, not because they're forced, not because they're traded, but because they find peace here."
The fire crackled.
The wind whispered through the open window. And Ilara realized she had already begun to choose.
Not out of fear. Not out of lack. But because, here, she was not barren. She was belonging.